The time is 1:09. This is the Transportation Conference Committee on House File 2438. And we're in Minnesota, the Minnesota Senate Building, room 1150. A quorum is present. Welcome, members. You have your agenda before you, and we had sent some documents out and posted them to the committee website. We'd like to maybe start working through some of those ideas for offers and stuff that we could perhaps adopt into the conference committee report. But before that, as a little preview, a little teaser, something to get us all anxious and excited about what's to come, in the limited policy offer of Senate and House only items. Is that right? Is that right? We do have the e-bike extension and a little bit of a change to the program, and there's been some work on that through the hearing process in the Senate, and I think some like work in the House, and the chief author in the House, Representative Ream and Senator Abler, who is with us here today. And as a courtesy, we're just having Senator Abler pop up and talk to us a little bit about where we've been and where we've come. And it's manifested in the A43 amendment. If you want to pull that out of your packet, you can kind of follow along a little bit with what Senator Abler is going to discuss with us. So, before that, Chair Koznick, Chair Cagle, any opening comments? No? Okay, great. Senator Abler.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And I want to actually embrace the idea about sponsorships for like short blurbs in front of conference committees. I only paid for a 1-minute spot, but on behalf of Minnesota e-bikes, we want to thank you for your attention today. And remember, e-biking is not just for, it's for everybody. Anyway, so just very briefly, I'm really pleased where the agreement has come together. I think the House and the Senate have come to really good terms. What you're going to see is a way to take the e-bike program and serve over 3,000 individuals, potentially, people who are modest and low income, who are either on SSI or who are on a state waiver program. And it has, I think it's really cool. So, you'll read about it. I promised I'd be very brief, but I just wanted to thank many participants, Senator Rest and the Department of Revenue and Mr. Greenfield, and who's got like 6 iterations which are not in the packet. Anyway, so thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't even want to, I just wanted to say thank you. And I think, you know, in this very tumultuous time with state and federal stuff, I think this is going to be really kind of a nice thing that we can like, look what we did, and we can create mobility for people with disabilities and needs, and I just couldn't be happier. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, Senator Abler, because you've got our interest peaked, and as long as our attention is turned towards e-bikes, maybe I'll have Mr. Greenfield just walk us quickly through the A43 that would acquaint us with some of the elements that are being modified from the program that we had last year. Just to remind everyone, $4 million one time was appropriated. Of that, about $1.5 million, I think, has been expended. So there's about $2.5 million remaining in the program. It was first come, first come, first serve. You know, the 2 major cruxes of the changes are to make it a lottery and to focus it, to make it entirely income sensitive and focused on people with disabilities. So those are the kind of the big 3 changes. Mr. Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the conference committee, I've included and prepared a provision comparison sheet that prepares a summary of the A43 amendments. It kind of highlights the 3 kind of prongs of what the A43 amendment will do to bring the language from the Senate position to kind of reflect the agreement between the House and the Senate. So on the A43 document, the first instruction is inserting a cancellation of the appropriation. All good? Okay.
We're just having a party here.
That's right. Tax provisions, very exciting. This cancels the appropriation of any expended funds at the end on June 30, 2026. This is a provision that's carried in the Senate tax bill that's been brought over. Then the additional language on the A43 amendment makes the conforming change to effectuate what Senator Abler and Senator Dibble were referring to, where in the current language that was brought into conference committee, a person is required to both have a disability and meet the income limitation. The A43 instead says an eligible individual for a rebate is either a person who meets the income limitation or meets the definition of a person with a disability. So the language from 1.11 to 1.22 is essentially modifying that definition. And then the language on 1.24 to 1.29 and on to page 2 is that effectuation of that of that eligibility component. The operative language is on 1.26 and 1.27 in that regard. Then there are some conforming changes from 2.4 to 2.9, as well as 2.11, and those have been worked out with the Department of Revenue as well. And then on 2.13 of the A43, this deletes the report that's carried forward in the Senate language that requires the Department of Revenue to analyze the administrative challenges and technical difficulties with the 2024 administration of the rebate program.
Great. So any questions, members? All right, we'll set that aside.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, who? Oh, Senator, Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also just really wanted to give a shout out to Representative Ream, who I know has been working really hard with you, Senator Abler, on this. And so just wanted to make sure that the House gets their dues too. So thank you.
Mr.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, I just wanted to make sure that I was able to thank Lucy Ream for some of the work on this too.
Yes, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I was derelict not mentioning her either, so thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And just in case there is a question, I think Mr. Greenfield touched on it. We have Representative Ream and Senator Abler and Council have interfaced and worked with the agency to make sure that this language is administrate. Is that a verb? Administratable? Administrable. All right. That's today's lesson. Yesterday we learned about asset ratios. Today we're going to learn new words. All right, so we'll set that aside. And I'd like to go slightly out of order. I'd like to see if we can't get some agreement on some items. Thought we'd try with something really easy. Granted, these are Senate-only provisions, but if we could take a look at it's called the addendum offer, and it's the 3 items that designate a segment of highway and 2 bridges in memory of people that we wanted to honor and memorialize and respect. The first one was the Officer Jason B. Meyer Memorial Highway. Council, can you remind us where that is and which senator brought that to us? And I think it was carried in the House as well, but it didn't end up in the Omnibus bill.
Chair Dibble, that is a Senator Miller provision, and I believe it's in, I have to find the page, excuse me.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you. Yes, that was taken in the Senate side. That was Senator Miller's bill that we added. Was an officer that was killed in line of duty. So I would, if we want to move that now or move them all as one, I don't know what your preference is.
We'd like to move them all as one. I wanted Senator Clark to move them, though, because Senator Dietzig is named. So if he could have the honor.
We had an extra one that wasn't.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's kind of working on it.
All right. Okay, we'll just talk about them for a minute, and I think we're working up an amendment to add another one. So we'll just talk very slowly. So that's that. And then we have the Elmstrand, Finseth, is it Rug or Rugi? I'm sorry? Anyways, so this is a bridge down in Burnsville to memorialize the 2 officers and the EMS paramedic who lost their lives in that tragic incident of about a year ago or so. And then finally, our beloved Minnesota Senate Majority Leader Carrie Dietzig, the Memorial Bridge. And that bridge in question is 10th Avenue, which is the major connector that runs just a few yards to the east of the 35W bridge that connects the West Bank, Seven Corners area with the East Bank, which she actually had a fairly substantial role in obtaining the resources to renovate that bridge, and it carries a tremendous amount of both foot traffic and bicycle traffic and automobile traffic in that area, and it's contained entirely within her Senate district, so it's particularly fitting, and her family is very, very supportive of memorializing her and honoring her in this way. All right, ready? All right, so why don't, we should move it first and then make the amendment? All right. Okay, so Senator Jasinski, I guess my advice is to do one by one. So Senator Jasinski, would you like to move the first one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to move the R60 for Officer Jason B. Meyer Memorial Highway.
All right. So, Council, could you restate the amendment so it's made in the proper way?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to adopt Senate Section 12 on R60 of the side-by-side.
All right. Any questions?
So moved.
All right. All in favor, say aye. 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 Motion carries. All right. We have the start of a conference committee report.
Not quite white smoke.
Very first one.
All right. And who would like to move the Elmstrand Vincent Rugi Heroes? Oh, of course. This is down in Senator Carlson's part of the world. So, Senator Carlson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move the R60 revisor page in Senate Section 13, and that's for the Elmstead Finseth officers who were killed in my district in Burnsville.
And Rudy Heroes Memorial Bridge. All right. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
No.
Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair Dibble. I'll move on revisers R93, Section 100, I believe that's Article 3. The Minnesota Senate Majority Leader Carrie Dietzick Memorial Bridge, which, yes, Carrie was my predecessor and beloved by, I think, her colleague, all of her colleagues here, as well as necessary and needed in Northeast and Southeast Minneapolis. I move that memorial bridge.
Any questions? All in favor say aye. 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 Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. Representative Koznick.
Chair Dibble, we had another memorial in the House that was not, it was traveling alone, so we didn't put it into our House bill. I'll turn it over to Mr. Burris to describe it, but it's Representative Baker's bill for Officer Schmidt, who I believe was a military veteran and local law enforcement and had a tragic car accident, I believe, in the area that's described.
Mr. Burris.
Mr. Chair and members, the amendment is impending. I believe copies are being printed and will be distributed shortly. This is based on or picks up the language from House File 854, and it would establish a Sergeant Joshua A. Schmidt Memorial Highway, and that's for a segment of U.S. Highway 71 that's south of Wilmer.
So question to council, can we just have Representative Koznick or whomever just to move the language of House File 854 into the conference committee report?
Mr. Chair, I think that's enough direction for the reviser, and with the amendment being drafted in the system, I think that's plenty of direction that we can, as a committee, make a motion and adopt or not adopt.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, it also did pass pretty significant, probably almost unanimously, if not on the House floor.
I would like to know who voted no. I want to publicize their name.
I'm not sure that there were any no votes, but
Okay.
I am not 100% certain, so that's why I hedge.
All right. So that motion has been made by Representative Koznick Any questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. So I'd like to turn our attention to the document we just copied, and it's the exact same document that we saw yesterday, which is Transportation Finance Conference Committee Provisions for Consideration dated 5/12/2025, with the 5/9/2025, 5:18 p.m. Timestamp in the lower right-hand corner. Maybe just to get the conversation in front of us, is your advice that we just move them again piecemeal or as a whole? All right. So why don't we handle it this way? If Senator Johnson Stewart could just simply move the sheet. It's two sides, by the way, so it's 10 provisions. So Senator Johnson Stewart will move all of these 10 provisions that we see on this document just to place it before us. And then I'll open it up for discussion, maybe just very quickly, just so that the public knows what's happening, who might not be able to access the website or have this piece of paper in front of them. Mr. Greenfield, if you could just very quickly run us through what these 10 provisions are.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. This is a variety of policy provisions that are related to the Department of Public Safety and the Minnesota Department of Transportation. The first provision is a legislative turnback on a route segment of the trunk highway system. The second provision extends the length of a temporary permit for a commercial driver's instructional permit from 31 days to, the second provision is the 60-day temporary vehicle permit for a vehicle that is issued and transported out of state. The third provision is a technical clarification to the definition of an intersection with a different definition, and the Senate language is taken there in terms of the effective date of July 1, 2025. The fourth provision is a minor technical change to the definition of a traffic control signal to add for the definition of a flashing yellow light. This provision, the offer is to take only paragraphs A through C. There is an additional section or additional paragraph in that statutory section that pertains to a separate provision related to citations for pedestrians, and that would not be part of the adoption or not adoption of the sames and similars provisions. The next provision is from the DVS policy bill that makes a technical change related to evidence of a name change. The next provision is another technical change from the DVS policy bill that relates to driver's license revocations and makes and the degrees of manslaughter, and then makes a variety of technical and conforming changes from there. The next is from the Department of Transportation related to the authorization to have a coordinated unmanned aircraft event. The recommendation is to take House language for clarity purposes. Then the second page of the chart authorizes electronic attestation for aircraft registration. For those who have really been following along the offer sheets, the initial recommendation was to take Senate language, but then after consultation with MnDOT, they need an additional month to ensure that the programming required for the electronic attestation is able to be administrable. And that is now changed to a recommendation to adopt the House effective date of August 1. So for those who've really been following along, that is a slight change, but a change nonetheless. And then the final is an identical provision that extends the effective date for a certain report from the Center on Transportation Studies at the U of M.
And then you didn't mention about the appropriation. I was only listening what happened here. There's an appropriation that goes with that we would need to extend that appropriation, but we're not going to discuss money, so that part of it is not included in this offer. So what I would propose is to, number one, respond to any questions, to discuss any items that members might have questions, or invite anyone forward who wants to testify on any subject that's on this list. And secondly, if any member wants to take something off the list, we can certainly do that. And I think as a courtesy, we'll support a motion to take an item off the list. If everyone agrees, that's a good idea. All right. So with that, we will open up for discussion. Questions, members? All right. Does anyone want to testify on any of these matters? All right. So Senator Johnson Stewart renews her motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. Woo, now we got a heck of a, yeah. We got a lot of provisions adopted. All right. So next we'll turn to Senate offer number 2 on sames and similars. These are the items, we just picked these up. These had been in that list that the Senate had brought in last Friday. And so, Senator Johnson Stewart will again move this sheet. So we'll put these 3 items in front of us. And Mr. Greenfield, if you could describe the elements of this.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, these are 3 provisions, as you referenced, that were incorporated as part of the Senate offer on sames and similars. The first is a provision that authorizes certain compensation for no-fee transactions for deputy registrars and driver's license agents. There's only a technical difference between the House and the Senate in the terms of how the payment structure is organized in statute. And the recommendation from the staff is to take House language with the previously discussed and circulated A34 amendment that, if desired by the committee, Ms. Boyd can speak to again. The second provision is an identical provision in both House and Senate bill that extends the length of time for a commercial driver's instruction permit. The third provision is a same and similar provision that was not on the Friday offer, Senator Dibble, for purposes of full transparency. However, the reason for that was the working out of an effective date where both the House and the Senate had an effective date of July 1, 2025. But after consulting with Metro Transit and the Metropolitan Council, that effective date now in the Senate offer is proposed to be changed to the day filing for final enactment. If members recall, there was a 2024 pilot that expired on December 31, 2024 for free fares for Metro Mobility riders. That is now a nominal 1-cent fee. So that is essentially the purpose behind the effective date changes. There's already only a very base nominal fee charged to these customers. And that is the 3 elements of those pieces. And if the committee would like, we can talk about the A34 as well.
Thank you. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and describe these amendments, the A34, and I think you just discussed the A40. So yeah, why don't we?
Mr. Chair and members, the A34, I believe, is in your packets. I don't have it in front of me, but I know what it says. That it changes the existing direct appropriation of $2.189 million per year. Thank you. From the general, it actually doesn't make any changes to the direct appropriation in this amendment because those decisions will be made later as part of the fiscal discussion. All that this does is change the policy language to include a statutory appropriation and open appropriation for these reimbursement payments every year. And that estimate is $2.189 million every year from the special revenue fund from the driver and vehicle services operating account.
And can you remind us why that's a good idea?
Mr. Chair, the amounts for certain transactions are set in the language on both the House and Senate side, so those are very specific. The $2.189 million a year is an estimate based on knowledge of transactions now, but it may be lower or higher in any given year, and this would prevent it from being a first come, first serve item and rather making the transaction reimbursements as they occur.
And if I recall, Chair Cagle was worried, and maybe I'm rephrasing, that this would be a runaway, with an open appropriation, it could run away and become like out of control. Is there an effective response to that, or should we invite the agency up to respond to that? Chair Cagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So My worry is the ongoing portion of it. You know, I think I know the House members know how I feel about DRs. So I think, you know, there has to be some real examination of the system because it's kind of a system that nobody can really work. It's not a good business to be a DR or DL. So I would really like to examine the entire system and figure out how we can best move forward. And so I'm a little reluctant to have it be ongoing. I'm fine with it being the biennium. But if we could make sure that we're re-examining some of those payments after that, I would appreciate it.
All right. Representative Olson, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue of an ongoing appropriation is not an issue for me. It's the concept of an open appropriation that is and I like my deputy registrars. Like, this is something that I'm a fan of, but at the same time, the idea that we're going to open the gates and let the horse run and just let it turn into a runaway train, that's something that I think is irresponsible of anyone to do, because it could be less, it could be more, it could be $100,000 more, it could be $100 million more. I think that many of us think that might be inconceivable that it would get to that length, but an open appropriation is just that. As much money as is necessary goes out of the budget, and we will have authorized that into the future. I think it's an irresponsible thing that we, you know, if they need more money, we'll address that when we get to it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I share some of the concerns. However, you know, talking about this, these are the transactions that are not paid right now. So a lot of times what's happening here, these are the transactions that start online, they can't get done, they go into their local deputy register. The local deputy register actually gets the transaction done, and then they submit that to DVS. DVS then reimburse them for the fees they were not paid for. So they would have to submit. This isn't just an open appropriation as far as we're going to do X amount per transactions. This is actually DVS. They have to submit. The deputy register has to submit, say, hey, I completed these amount of transactions, this amount of money that goes towards us to do that. And they look at those annually, or actually each on a case-by-case basis. They probably do a monthly or quarterly, I'm not sure, but they come in. And I understand concern, but these are the deputy registers that are completing these transactions that are very, very important to our customers out there. So I think it's documented that these transactions have been done, so this reimburses the deputy registers for that amount that they do. So I'm supportive of it. I understand the open appropriation, and I get that, but I think our deputy registers, they've been doing these for years, and they've been going on and not getting paid for these, so these have to get taken care of. So how we look at it annually or semi-annually or biennially, how we do that, but we just got to make sure we get this done so it does not get taken away. It doesn't get done through political fodder. It comes out of the DVS account. The DVS account has that money in there. We're just trying to get this money down to our private and our counties and our cities that are doing these transactions and not getting paid for them now.
So I'm going to invite Director Zhang forward. Members, I anticipate we're just going to pull this item off this offer for now, but I would like to at least have the full discussion about the idea. Welcome, Director Zhang. Can you, I'll just start off with the kind of the first setup question here. This is a governor's recommendation. Of course, it comes about through a lot of conversation with the DRs and DLAs, a lot of advocacy from Senator Jasinski over time, and it's exactly as he described. It's those transactions that, and I have my own story to tell, which everyone has heard several times now, but you haven't heard it yet, so here we go. We had a problem with our car title address was wrong, and we're having a heck of a time online effectuating the change of address. Just got snafu'd or snared up. It just wasn't taking. So I brought the materials to our private DR/DLA, actually I think it's a full service provider at the AAA office on Highway 100 in St. Louis Park, and they, they helped, but I have to tell you, it took, a good 20 plus minutes. They were running around, I don't know what the heck they were doing, but shuffling papers and typing on things and talking to each other, and I ran to another computer and back and did all these things, and voila. It was solved, and I went on my way and didn't pay a nickel, and I felt a little guilty because I know that they're a private DR DLA. So this happens a lot, and takes up a lot of their time, and so this is an attempt to try to make them whole. Director Zhang, yeah, just visit with us a little bit about this idea and the agency's perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pong Zhang, Director of the Driver and Vehicle Services Division. And yes, this is a governor's budget proposal, and it really is under the premise of we want to pay DRs and DLAs for the work that they do, and currently this work is not compensated. DRs and DLAs are compensated through filing fees, and those transactions that have filing fees associated to them are spelled out in statute. And so what this proposal does is identify specific transactions with specific fees associated to those transactions that can be accounted for and then remitted to the office that conducted that work. As we put the dollars and the fee structure together, we were really thinking about the health of the account and the longevity of the funds in the account. And so the fees were set up in a way where we felt that the account could absorb that going forward. These no-fee transactions are all accounted for in MinDrive, and as you all know, MinDrive is a very stable system now, and so the data coming out of it is something that we will rely on, and we can rely on to make sure that the right counts are in. And I know this wasn't quite asked, but I'll just talk a little bit about the open approach. One of the things that we have identified as a potential challenge is as we get to that last payment of the year, and if we have a set budget, we'll either have to do first come, first serve, or prorate, or some method to make sure we stay under, or even sooner than that, because it just depends on when the funds hit that balance. And so our recommendation is to use the open appropriation, given that we've had a long history of no-fee transactions in the system now that are really stay right around this range. And it's a lot of the transactions that you described, Mr. Chair, and that there are just certain transactions that are needed to be done with a person, and those are the ones that we want to make sure our partners are getting compensated for.
Great. Thank you. Questions for Director Zhang, members? Representative Koznick.
Thank you, Chair Dibble. So I think the original, Director, was it the original governor's recommendation just a flat $2 million or somewhere like that? But now with this amendment, we're discussing an actual per fee up to a certain amount, or as you just talked about, an open appropriation. Is that my understanding and tracking this correctly then?
Looks like Deputy Commissioner O'Hearn would like to respond. Welcome, Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Cassandra O'Hearn, Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to address that, right? We've been talking throughout this time that this was to pay for the transactions. It is drafted always to pay them for those transactions in the amount that has been set. So my belief is that all along we thought this was being treated exactly the same as the other fee transactions, and so those are based on the estimate. So it wasn't meant to be a flat fee. I mean, the amount, it was meant to be, and when we were looking through the final documents, realized that that looked like, oh, how are we going to administer that? What we really need is to ensure that it is treated the same as the other fee transactions that deputy registrars pay. So it is limited in scope. Those amounts are identified in the language. It isn't paying for other things. It is that we're pretty confident in the estimate based on, the historical trends of these types of transactions. But if there are more for some reason, or there are less, right, it will account for that. And the driver services account is sufficient to be able to handle this.
So, I'm sorry, read that. Deputy Commissioner, when you say the other fee transactions, so we're talking about, for example, when we go to a deputy registrar and we pay a fee to get our driver's license, or we pay a fee to get our tabs, or any number of things that we show up at a deputy registrar's office for. We pay that fee, which of course that fee is paid into driver and vehicle services, then comes back to the deputy registrar. Are there any other kinds of things that the driver and vehicle services operating account supports that is, would that transaction I just described be considered an open appropriation? And is there anything else that's considered an open appropriation so that we don't get to the end of the year and suddenly we're out of money and we can't pay our obligations?
If I may.
It's a little different, I think, because the customer is paying the transaction.
Pays.
Yeah, and so then it goes in and then comes back out to the deputy registrar.
Yeah, it I guess is more similar to when we have to reconcile an account. So where there has been, I guess you can probably explain the situations on those reconciliations when then we need to pay back into that.
Okay.
Yeah, so generally for those other.
Director Jean.
Thank you. Generally for the other transactions where there's an actual filing fee associated, we collect the fee, the entire fee amount is collected by the deputy registrar or the driver's license agent. That is remitted, and then a portion of that is kept with the deputy registrar or the driver's license agent. We do reconcile the transactions, and so then there is a portion that we may have to correct at the end of the period. But generally, it's taken from that transaction amount, and then the balance is left into the driver services operating account.
Well, I'm hearing some ideas for some middle ground. I don't know if we're able to satisfy Chair Cagle's concerns because they're more global in nature. But if we do land on agreeing that this is a good idea, I'm hearing some ideas for maybe some middle ground around how to deal with the open appropriation question, either just make it subject to a set amount and would take the risk of running out of money at the end of the year, number one. Number two, maybe doing it on a one-time basis and seeing how it goes. Number three, an idea that I had was I can't remember now. I had a great idea. I'll think of it later. But in any case, it's kind of a sunset type idea. So in any case, what I think we should probably do at this point is pull this off for further discussion. I don't think we're going to resolve some of these questions on the fly here today. So Senator Johnson Stewart will amend her motion to eliminate the first line on Senate offer number 2. Actually, should we make that as a motion and take a vote? Or just?
Adopt. Table as you see fit, so you don't have to make a motion and take it off.
All right. So we'll just consider that removed for the time being. We'll deputize Senator Jasinski to work with Senator Olson, or Representative Olson on some, I'm always inclined to demote you over here. To work something out and bring it back, that would be great. Thanks. All right, the other two items, questions, members. All right, are we ready to vote? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. And just to be clear, the A40 is contained, so that's, by reference, we adopted the A40 as well. All right, so let's move on to some items that we haven't seen yet, which is Senate policy offer. It doesn't have a number attached to it, right? Is that yeah. All right. So, it just says Senate policy offer 5/12/2025 Transportation Finance Conference Committee. Starts with the first line, medical covering on driver's license, photograph authorization. Senator Johnson Stewart will move this sheet. And all right, so all right, sounds like we have some. So take this one and this one off. All right. Yeah. Why don't we move it, and then it sounds like we have some questions. We'll move through the questions, and it looks like we're going to probably take a couple of them off. So that motion has been made. Mr. Greenfield, please walk us through the sheet.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Members of the Conference Committee, the Senate policy offer document has a variety of House-only and Senate-only provisions. So it's sorted by revisor page on the side-by-side. So that might be the cleanest way to kind of follow along as to what is referring to what. The first component is, as Senator Dibble referred to, is an authorization from a Senate-only provision that authorizes a person to wear a medically required covering for purposes of their driver's license photograph. Currently, certain individuals are allowed to wear headwear, but this just adds a specific reference to certain types of medical devices. This was a Senator Howe provision. The second provision is a House-only provision that establishes a class of license plates for rental cars. The second provision is a clarification to provision related to dealer licensing, motor vehicle dealer licensing that's carried in the governor's bill. This is a House-only provision. And the second provision is also related to motor vehicle dealers and is also contained in the governor's bill, and as a House-only provision that relates to qualification requirements for obtaining a dealer's license, such as out-of-state conviction look back and other forms of technical and policy changes. The next provision on R84 requires the obtaining of a new license plate upon transfer of a vehicle. I know Senator Dibble and I have kicked around the terminology of whether it's requiring the removal of a license plate or obtaining new license plate upon transfers, but either way, I think the language has not changed. It's just more that terminology that upon the transfer of a vehicle, except for the creation of a security interest, a person is required to apply and receive new license plates. This is a Senate-only provision and is also brought forth in the governor's transportation bill. The next provision is a requirement to wear a seatbelt for when riding a Class 2 ATV. This is a House-only provision that's currently in the governor's bill. The next provision is a House-only provision that modifies road test scheduling for commercial driver's license examinations. The next provision is a Senate-only provision that authorizes work zone safety to be taught in driver's education and to be taught on the driver's examination subject, and requires upon adoption or upon enactment incorporation of work zone safety principles into the driver's manual. That is a Senate-only provision. The next is the already previewed and discussed electric-assisted bicycle rebate modification with the A43 amendment. So this is the only of the policy offer that is a both House and Senate provision, but the offer is to include the Senate language as amended by the A43. The next provision is a Senate-only provision relating to direct contracting authorization or direct contracting preferences for the Metropolitan Council. And then the final of the Senate policy offer is some changes, technical and conforming changes for transportation financial reporting requirements for the Metropolitan Council to consolidate certain reports, repeal a standalone report related to replacement service providers that's then picked up in a separate report, and a technical change to the cleaning standards report required of the Metropolitan Council.
Thank you. So we'll just open it up for questions on any of these provisions from members? Sorry. Chair.
I was conferring over there. Is there a motion before us?
Yeah, so the sheet is before us. So we're, any item that you'd like to discuss is available for discussion.
I would like to have the poll, or if that's appropriate, or discuss the R84 and the R121, so the new license plates upon transfer, and then the electronic assisted bicycle rebate modification.
Very good. All right. Would you just like to, well, why don't we just open up for discussion? Did you have questions about the new license plate upon transfer? Oh, I should probably mention.
Yeah, the other ones, sorry. The other ones I don't believe we have any concerns with, or.
All right.
I'm not.
All right.
Chair Cagle may.
Chair Cagle.
Thank you. I just, I would like to know how some of the reporting interplays with the House language. So the Metro Council Transportation Financial Reporting. I know we had a number of reporting provisions in the House side, consolidating reports and making sure that they're available on a kind of project portal type thing. And so I'm just kind of curious how all those different studies would interplay. Maybe Mr. Burris would be able to help us out here.
Mr. Burris.
Mr. Chair, Representative Cagle, so there are a number of reporting provisions, as you've alluded to. In reviewing it, I didn't identify any conflicts between the changes that are proposed in this in comparison or in conjunction with the local reporting as well as MnDOT reporting requirements. So essentially, there are a set of reporting requirements that are being modified for MnDOT through a set of provisions, local units of government for another set of reporting provisions, so largely counties, regional railroad authorities, and then these modifications are directed to the requirements of the Metropolitan Council.
Chair Cagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do believe we had some of the reporting requirements for Met Council within the House provisions as well, as far as as part of that county reporting piece that we did. And so, yeah, just kind of, I just wanted to kind of see how they would meld together if we'd wanted this kind of reporting within the other set of provisions as well, or yeah, there's lots of reporting provisions in the bill.
Chair Cagle, do you want to pull this item off or to take a closer look at that and come back to it another day?
Well, if there's no conflict with it, we could probably just add this piece into some of the other reporting mechanisms, but I don't know if you want to hold off and see how they could interplay, or if we want to just go ahead and move this, I'm fine with it as well.
Right. Sure. All right. Yes, why don't we invite the Met Council forward. Mr. Shetnin. Yeah. And Mr. Shetnin, just this is a governor's initiative, an agency recommendation, and if you just help us understand a little bit what we're doing here.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Judd Shetnin. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Metropolitan Council, and this is a Met Council Governor's Initiative. This is really a streamlining initiative that we had Senator Johnson Stewart carry, and I had sent over the weekend, I don't know if folks had a chance to look at this, but a table that shows how we are basically cleaning up a number of reporting requirements and putting them into a place where we are being consistent and timely, so that we feel that this information will be provided to the legislature at a point in time when it is most useful. We are not asking to reduce any type of reporting. In fact, we think that this will be better information for the legislature, but relating to some of the other reporting that you're referencing, I don't believe that interacts with that. This is taking existing reporting and cleaning that up. We honestly believe this is very technical and housekeeping in nature, and we want to be completely transparent, so that's why we tried to provide the crosswalk that explains where everything can be found and when it is when it's required. And I appreciate Mr. Burris, his comments on this as well. But that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you, Mr. Shetnin. Questions, members? All right, Chair Cagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm comfortable moving that item.
Great. All right. You know, Before we get to the items that you want to either pull off or have questions about, we did schedule a little conversation about work zone safety, which is actually part of this offer, and people showed up to talk about it, so I want to honor their presence and their ability to make us slightly smarter on this subject. So, looking for my list here. Oh, here we are. Except we can just visit a little bit more safety. I'm just slow us down a little bit just because they're here. All right. So real quickly, people are here to tell us why the Work Zone Safety Initiative is a good idea. So I'll just read off the names of the 4 folks who are here to share a few minutes of thoughts with us. Tom Dicklich from the Building and Construction Trades, Margaret Donahoe from the Transportation Alliance, Laura Ziegler from AGC, and Brian McDaniel from the Asphalt Paving Association. Come on up. Do we have a spare chair? Maybe we could get all 4 of you up there to say your piece. If a page could pull another chair up, that would be great. All right. Anyone who wants can just kick us off here. Ms. Donahoe, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Dibble, Chair Kosnick, and Chair Cagle, and members of the committee. I'm Margaret Donahoe, Director of the Minnesota Transportation Alliance, and we appreciate the opportunity to express our support for language in the Senate bill that would require training regarding construction work zone safety in the driver's license requirements and urge you to include this in the final bill. I'd like to thank Senator Johnson Stewart for carrying the legislation. In Minnesota, work zone crashes are a serious concern with 49 deaths and 3,682 injuries reported in the period between 2018 and 2022. Minnesota's work zone crash rate is 63% above the national average. And we know that we need a number of strategies to deal with this issue. We believe that one of the tools that was brought to our attention by our members, including the Asphalt Pavement Association, is to incorporate this training into the driver's education curriculum. The states of Wisconsin and Oklahoma have developed programs that emphasize the real consequences of collisions in the work zone. In Wisconsin, the training includes stories of how collisions in the work zone have changed 3 people's lives. Students meet a highway commissioner who had a maintenance worker killed on the job, a worker who lost his legs after being hit in a work zone, and a police officer who was hit and injured while working. So the students learn about how to identify work zones, how to drive safely through a work zone, and the consequences of dangerous driving in work zones, including many injuries and fatalities to drivers and vehicle occupants in work zones. So as we work to reduce crashes and fatalities in our roadways, we believe that the provision in the Senate bill will provide an important tool to raise awareness of this critical issue and make our construction work zones safer for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dicklich.
Thank you, Chair Dibble, Chair Kosnick, Chair Cagle, and members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Tom Dicklich, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Minnesota State Building and Construction Trades Council, representing over 70,000 women and men in the trades who build our state's infrastructure. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on an issue that is of incredible importance and one that is extremely personal to the men and women in the construction trades that go to work every day on highway, road, and bridge projects. Work zone safety is truly a matter of life and death to our members, which is why we are in full support of the language found in sections 48, 49, and 51 of the Senate version of the bill before you. Having driver's education students learn about safe speeds, distracted driving, and safely merging in and out of work zones will be a positive, impactful improvement to our driver's classes. Heavy equipment operators, iron workers, cement masons, laborers, and carpenters spent their work days with traffic speeding by just feet away from them. Long hours, job insecurity, and constant deadlines contribute to these stressful working conditions, which is why the construction trades have among the highest suicide rates in any employment. As a result, along with our contractors, we have implemented and are executing increased mental health programs. However, addressing these challenges requires a multi-pronged approach. Helping educate the greater public about work zone safety is an important component that can help make sure our members return home after their shift is done. These efforts are essential to protecting our workforce and reducing preventable injuries in construction zones. We urge the members of this conference committee to adopt these Senate provisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Ziegler.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Laura Ziegler with Associated General Contractors of Minnesota. We're a statewide trade association representing contractors of all sizes. For your purposes here today, I'm here to speak with respect to those contractors and their workforce that work behind those orange barricades that we certainly are seeing more of these days. So certainly appreciate and thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony to express our full support to include work zone safety education in Minnesota's driver education programs and driver's manual. As Mr. Diklich and Ms. Donahoe stated, it is very important to take a multi-pronged and interdisciplinary approach to work zone safety. At AGC, our contractors, we meet regularly with MnDOT and the Department of Public Safety to discuss these important tools that we have control over in a work zone, whether that's design or traffic management plans, signage, enforcement, and education. And of course, what you have for your consideration in front of you here today is that education piece and is an opportunity to impact the next generation of Minnesota drivers and our construction workers. This really is about promoting a culture of safety. It is most often the traveling public that are involved in those serious crashes and fatalities in work zones. So these provisions are just proactive and are common sense to help educate and inform our drivers and soon-to-be drivers. Mr. Diklich touched on this. We think of the physical safety component. It's also important to create the awareness around the mental health and the mental safety and emotional safety of our workers when they are working in those work zones, and then in particular when these crashes occur. Just before I got up here, I was notified that I-94 in Maple Grove was shut down, and it's very clear that that crash occurred in a construction work zone. So certainly thinking of anyone that has been impacted by that incident here today. I don't have further information, but just highlights the importance of this conversation here today. Because I know many of you on this committee appreciate slogans or song titles, I thought I'd close out by sharing the slogan for National Work Zone Safety Awareness Week this year, which was "Respect the Zone so we can all go home." So thank you for your time here today. Available for any further questions.
And it's still legal for MnDOT to put that on a illuminated sign.
You're welcome.
All right, the closer, Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Brian McDaniel. I'm here on behalf of the Minnesota Asphalt Pavement Association, a trade association representing the asphalt paving industry since 1942. We are here to express our strong support for the inclusion of work zone safety content in driver's license requirements. Our commitment stems from a deep concern over the safety of both drivers and our workers on Minnesota roads. The reality for construction workers is that they are in danger every day. Unlike most workplaces, theirs is often just feet away from live traffic. This is especially true for asphalt paving crews. We frequently are working in active traffic environments to avoid road closures and to minimize public inconvenience. Paving operations typically keep one lane open, meaning workers are sometimes inches from moving vehicles. Our road crews, especially asphalt paving crews, build and maintain the very infrastructure that keeps Minnesota moving. The least we can do is ensure their safety while they do it. Let's show our commitment to the men and women who risk their lives to accommodate ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. We'll call on Senator Johnson Stewart to also share with us her work and why this is a good idea.
Oh, thank you, Senator Dibble, or Chair Dibble. Yeah, when I testified on this in our Senate committee, I talked about my career working for decades right behind those barricades, if we have them, cones many times, and just trying to explain that it's terrifying. And it leads to a lot of just, it's very stressful. And so what I've seen a couple accidents firsthand. I have had cars drive up to both a concrete paver and a blacktop paver, right behind the paver. You really can't believe it's happening, but I have seen it. And what I've also seen a few times is cars that get in the wrong area, and then because there's so much happening, they just go, there's no predictability. So they steer off and they go up a hill or around. It's just insane, and people run all over. So I think it's really important that we include this. We cannot assume that people are smart enough to not drive up behind a paver and then honk for us to get out of the way, because frankly, there are some people who are not smart enough to know that. So we need to include it. Plus, as I mentioned, in the training and in the exams, but I also brought this up. I think just making especially young drivers aware that the safety components of a road that we take for granted when it's not in a work zone, so for example, providing adequate sight distance, stopping sight distance, turn radii for the speed that we're used to going at, those are not available in a work zone. And so just letting students understand that it is inherently dangerous to exceed the speed in a work zone because of the geometry, that's something most people don't even think about. So this is really important, and I'll continue to work on work zone stuff, but if this gets passed in this bill, I will be very proud of it, and I will expect to see some lives get saved. So thank you to all the testifiers who are friends. I appreciate it, and thank you, Senator Dibble.
Thank you. And thanks to you all, and please convey our gratitude to all of the folks who are out there on the roads working. And I can't imagine how scary it is, and appreciate their hard work every day. All right. So Senator Johnson Stewart will modify her motion to remove the lines where you see R84 in the first column and R121. And then Mr. Greenfield wants to clarify a little more detail and we'll incorporate this into the motion for the item, I think the item we just discussed, right?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
So we find that where you see R97 in that first column, work zone safety. Mr. Greenfield.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, for the line on the table for the work zone safety provision of the Senate offer, there are a variety of sections. The last section, section 51, R103, pertains to subjects that must be taught on a driver's examination. And this contains multiple bills. The overall statutory section contains a variety of different pieces. And so the motion should be amended to only adopt the provision that pertains to work zone safety. So for the members of the committee, the lines on the Senate language would be on R103 to adopt lines on the Senate bill 89.11 to 89.14. And then on page R104 of the side-by-side, the effective date, adopt after the period on 90.16 and 90.17. So that would pick up the effective date for the inclusion of the work zone safety piece that is delayed until January 1, 2027, and applies to examinations on or after that date, which was worked out with the department to ensure that the proper sequencing of the incorporation into the driver's manual upon subsequent revisions, then the rulemaking required to update the driver's education curriculum, and then the January 1 effective date to be taught as part of the driver's license examination. So the motion would not to be to just adopt section 51 wholesale, but rather those identified parts.
All right. Is that clear for everyone? Great. Let me just put out the public call. Would anyone like to testify on any of the matters that are on this sheet? All right, seeing none, anything further, members? We understand the motion. It's basically the sheet with the modification just described, absent the line, the fifth line, and the ninth line, absent the new license plate upon transfer and the electric-assisted bicycle item. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. And then Chair Koznick, were there any questions or any more information or anything we should know about those two items we pulled off?
Mr. Chair, the concerns on R48 was just generally the cost to Minnesota taxpayers and consumers. If I understand it correctly, it would raise about $4.8 $8 million a year, 9.7 over the biennium. And so that's generally the cost, in addition to just make it a little bit more complicated. I understand the intent, and I think it's well-founded, but so that's the fiscal cost is a concern on that one. And then for the assisted bicycle rebate, I just wanted to have a discussion, and maybe we can just have somebody move that, and we'll have the discussion.
All right. Right now?
Yeah.
All right, so.
You're the chair.
All right. Senator Johnson Stewart will move the elected assisted bicycle rebate item found on that R121 line. All right, that's in front of us. Chair Koznick.
Mr. Chair and committee members, the discussion on this is, we're to carry over from a previous appropriation, but wanted to entertain a discussion on being able to help, the intended purpose to help as many people, especially low income and what was the other term?
People with disabilities.
People with disabilities, to help as many as we can, suggest to continue with the trend of lowering the amount of the rebate to help more people. $500 would buy most sufficient e-bikes. So wanted to entertain the discussion of, instead of $750 rebate, we could help about 25% more people, 4,000 if the math that was done for me was correct. And so move that the rebate amount to $500. I think there's some benefit to doing that.
All right, so I'm trying to. All right.
He's prepped.
All right, I'm missing my A43.
Vic's here too. Sure.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Burris, if you could, so we're looking at, members, we're looking at the A43. It's an oral amendment. Mr. Burris.
Mr. Chair and members, the oral amendment would be an additional instruction. It would go after 1.22 on the amendment, and it would read page 105, line 3, delete $750 and insert $500.
All right, thank you. I will ask, if you don't mind, is anyone here from the Minnesota Bicycle Coalition who could respond to that idea? Mr. Moore. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, co-chairs Koznick and Cagle, I'm Vic Moore from Franzen and Moore, and I am the lobbyist for the Minnesota Bicycle Alliance. I just texted my executive director to get his advice on this. I'll tell you, we arrived at the 750 number somewhat arbitrarily. It was half of what we were suggesting before. E-bikes had been on the rise in terms of the cost, but we saw a shift on that happening. Now, this is regardless of what happens with the tariffs. If tariffs come in play, all of a sudden the cost of e-bikes will go way up, but we can only deal with what we know for now. So we came at that number with the idea of doubling the amount of people that would be eligible for it. We picked up the same language that was in the original bill, where it could be either 75% of what you're buying or the $750, whichever is lower. So it kind of depends. I think when we met with you, Representative Koznick, you mentioned that, and my memory fades, but you mentioned that you can buy an e-bike for $500, but it may not be a very good one. So that would be our concern. I suspect we would be open to that, particularly if it meant no bill, if we didn't agree to that. But I would ask rhetorically, why 500? Why not 1,000? Why not 250? At some point, how do we justify that particular number? And we justified this one by virtue of doubling the amount of applicants.
So thank you for that. Anything, Chair Cagle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So looking at the AI overlords, they say that the average price of an EI or an e-bike generally falls between $1,500 and $3,000. If we're marketing, or if we want low-income people and people with disabilities to take advantage of this program, but yet we're making the rebate so low that they can't afford the bike, then it kind of defeats the purpose. So I would be very reluctant to lower the e-bike rebate fee, just because I think then it's going to prohibit the people that we're targeting this to.
Thank you. Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chair Cagle. Senator Jasinski and I are searching over here, and yes, in fact, the average price is higher, but there's also, I'm kind of surprised, there's a lot of e-bikes that you can buy that seem fine for anywhere from $500 to $1,000. I do like the idea of coming down to 500. Granted, Chair Cagle, that may still result in a price that's too high for people, but it would expand the number of people that we'd be able to fund. I have a question. Is this only for new bike purchases, or would somebody be able to buy a used bike? Anybody know?
I'll ask either Mr. Moore or council. I think it's not confined. I'm not going to guess. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. So I'll just ask people who know or who can know shortly.
Mr. Chair and members, does not specify that, I believe, and I would have to do some checking to verify, but I believe that the rebate allows a purchaser who received the certificate, now under the previous allocation, to take the 700, 1,000, 500 certificate and take it to an eligible retailer and purchase a bike and any eligible expenses. The term eligible expenses is defined on R122, 1047 to 10410, and that includes the amount paid for an electric assisted bicycle, any qualifying accessories purchased at the same time, inclusive of sales tax. So that does not specify whether that would be new or used, but there are retailer requirements that, for all intents and purposes, would likely narrow that selection to new bicycles. Given the requirements that a retailer has to be engaged in the business of retail sales for at least 6 months before receiving approval from the Commissioner of Revenue.
But, Mr. Greenfield, it's plausible that retailers sell used bicycles too. Yeah, because there's a. Oh, Mr. Burrs.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, I believe it is limited to new electric-assisted bicycles on the basis of definition. So the definition of an electric-assisted bicycle in that statute essentially narrows it down to just new devices.
Got a rumble here. All right.
Senator.
Oh, all right. I guess you brought Council Greenfield over to your side. All right.
Thank you, Well, you recognize me first. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would offer up that if we expand the definition to used, there are a lot of retailers that sell used bikes, because this is the kind of thing that a lot of people trade up. So, again, I would be in favor if we expand it to used bikes as well.
So let me ask council, is that something that, I would rather not do that on the fly. I'd rather set this matter aside and work on it, come back another day, but is that something that's even possible? Mr. Burrs, Mr. Greenfield?
Mr. Chair, we could take a look at it. There are a couple of other requirements that are on the retailer side that are set out in current law, that the retailer has to be a new bicycle retailer. So there might be some implications that we would need to take a look at. I don't have anything coming to mind in an initial thought on it that would prevent that kind of modification.
Okie doke. So with the indulgence of my co-chair, can we just set this aside and come back another day?
Yeah.
All right.
That's the direction we're going.
All right. Chair Cagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to flag, too, that if we are incentivizing people with disabilities to get this, it might not be a two-wheel bike. And so some of those are more expensive as well, the tricycles. And so I do think we do need to put some thought into this. I don't think it's a good idea to just change the amount on the fly.
Very good. Okay, so Senator Johnson Stewart withdraws her motion on the A43. Yes. It's amazing how I read her mind so easily now. All right. So we have set the new license plate upon transfer vehicle aside for the time being, maybe forever, and we'll come back to the electric assisted bicycle rebate modification matter, and we'll have more conversation and more thought about that. So we're coming to the conclusion. We did want to have a little conversation about cost participation. This is Senator Jasinski. Why don't you set us up? This is something you've been interested in and leading on. And in the meantime, while you're talking, we'll invite Mike Lund, Graham Moberg, and Darren Lee forward. Oh, and Ann Finn. We have 4 chairs up there, right? And Ann Finn to come forward. And then we'll have a couple more folks testify as well. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is something that came to me earlier this year. Actually goes back to my days as involved in city government, talking about a project that would come through community and the cost participation between MnDOT and the local unit of government and who pays for what. And at some point, we've heard some discrepancies on what's fair, what's not. So this really is being looked at to see if we can have a process that looks at the fairness of how it's done. We've had some discussions since session started. And as you'll see, MnDOT is doing it right now. And they're looking at finishing this up. I think it's in March of next year. So I met with them, but we're still getting input from stakeholders to look at this issue. So I want to continue to work on it. And basically, I'd like to agree to continue this on to next year, which is what's in the bill, is to continue it on until next year. But we still have some stakeholders that want to talk about it. But thank you for your allowing me to hear this bill in committee. It's something that I think we do need to continue talking about. Many of our local units of government, again, sometimes feel that the participation is sometimes unfair. And so we're looking at that. So with that, we'll just listen to the testifiers and go from there, if you don't mind.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Greenfield, if you could point to us the sheet on which the relevant language is in case members or the public want to take a look at what exactly we're talking about.
Mr. Chair and members, that is found on R147 of the side-by-side. It's Senate Section 97 of Article 3.
Great, thank you. Mr. Lund, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Dibble, Chair Kosnick, Chair Cagle, and members of the conference committee. My name is Mike Lund with Metro Cities, representing the collective interests of cities in the 7-county metropolitan region. Metro Cities supports Section 97 in the Senate language, which directs MnDOT to update its cost participation policy in consultation with local government representatives and requires a report back to the legislature by February 1, 2026. Earlier this session, we supported the standalone bills dealing with this issue of local cost participation offered by Senator Jasinski and Representative Burkle in the House. In the metro region, this issue impacts cities of all sizes. Local governments are often put in the difficult position of adding additional strain to an already tight transportation budget or saying no to a beneficial trunk highway project or improvement. Metro Cities policies support a flexible policy at MnDOT that factors in a city's ability to pay and or the amount of trunk highways in and around their local boundaries. In other words, one that is context sensitive. Our association additionally supports some sort of state funding to help assist cities overburdened by their cost participation responsibilities. The provision included here in the Senate language highlights this important issue and recognizes that MnDOT is currently working with stakeholders on a policy update. This is the first major revision of the policy since 2016, and we very much look forward to the results of that work. Our cities appreciate the attention that both bodies have paid to this issue. Thanks for allowing me a minute or two just to express our support for the inclusion of this provision in an eventual conference committee report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee, for taking the time to hear from us, and I'd like to thank Senator Jasinski specifically for his work on this issue. My name is Granberg Moberg, and I'm with the Minnesota Association of Townships. We've been asked to give our views on the cost participation policy. Now, I want to start by saying this issue is not a particularly common one for townships in our experience, and when it has risen in the past, the Department of Transportation has done an excellent job of listening to our members. Nevertheless, we do remain concerned over the longer term about uncertainties inherent in the way that this issue is handled presently. We'd like to see something a little bit more solid over time because our members are worried about changing administrations, potential for costly litigation, and the simple chilling effect of uncertainty in this area, particularly given that when this issue has risen, it is a real make or break for us. It's the difference between us being able to do something or not on a very large project. We think this language is a good idea. We think it's a positive step forward to more certainty for all of our stakeholders, and we support the language we'd urge the members to adopt.
Thank you. Ms. Finn. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Lee and then Ms. Finn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Darren Lee with Flaherty and Hood, here today on behalf of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. So we first started hearing about this issue, or I did, about a year and a half ago when I got a call from Mayor Dan Fabian of Roseau. And so I looked into it a little bit and talked to the city administrator, and Representative Burkle was working on a bill and introduced it in 2024, which was very similar to the Senator Jasinski bill from this year, essentially saying that they could not require cost participation. We supported that bill. Subsequently, MnDOT rolled out a pilot project for the city of Roseau, which was able to get their cost from $450,000 down to $187,000. So we didn't really pursue that bill too much further. Fast forward to this year, and of course you had a hearing on it earlier this year. Mayor Fabian was here. The city administrator, Todd Peterson, was here. And they testified on some of these issues. So they were able to get it down to $187,000. Then MnDOT subsequently came back, 35% additional, so it went back up to $254,000. And so we really think it's kind of out of proportion with these projects that are state highways that go through town, where a lot of this traffic is through traffic, it's not local traffic. So a lot of the MSA funding gets eaten up by this cost participation requirement. In 1958, there was 58 state aid cities. Today, there's 156 state aid cities. There was 920 miles of state aid streets. Today, there's 4,000 miles. There's a lot, it's about the same amount of money for that amount of miles. We also have heard from Warroad that they're having an issue with this. Foston is another member of ours. City of Crookston actually has a project in the House bill for Highway 2 through their city. For $2.7 million is the ask, and $2.7 million is actually the amount of cost participation that they came back with. It was 3.3, and then MnDOT came back and added 2.7 for a total of 6, and so they're just asking for the 2.7 addition to what they thought right initially. So we're supportive of something with a little bit more teeth than what's in the bill currently. We think that's a good start, but then come back next year, and we hope that the legislature will act on that report, because I think it's probably going to take some legislative action on it. So thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. I'll also invite Marcus Culver and Capra O'Rourke forward and introduce Ms. Finn from LMC.
Thank you, Chair Dibble, Chair Koznick, Chair Cagle. My name is Ann Finn. I represent the League of Minnesota Cities. The League is a statewide association representing 842 of Minnesota's 857 cities. You've seen me before the committee if you've served on transportation on this issue before. Local cost share on trunk highway projects has been a source of frustration for cities since before I started representing the League, and that goes back more than 2 decades now. Cities' concerns have become more acute as project costs have dramatically increased. I should note both House and Senate Transportation Committees, as Senator Jasinski mentioned, have heard testimony on this issue earlier in session when bills offered by him and Representative Burkle received hearings. Both bills would have limited which portions of a MnDOT project would trigger local cost share. The provision in the current version of the Senate's omnibus bill does not limit local cost share. Rather, it requires MnDOT to update the agency's policy on cost share by March 1, 2026. The League believes this is a helpful step toward addressing a costly and ongoing issue. You may recall that Richfield Mayor Mary Supple testified on behalf of the League on the Jasinski and Burkle bills. The current policy does not consider the cost burden on local taxpayers nor the ability of local units of government to pay. And I just want to quote what she said because I think it's really helpful to understanding this issue. Richfield applauds investments in transportation infrastructure. However, the current state highway one-size-fits-all cost share policies failed to consider the financial capacities of local agencies to pay for regional projects and can consume the finances or debt capacities of communities who largely have no say in the construction, timing, or design of these projects. We believe that cities face a disproportionate share of the public investment burden for these regional state highway projects, which facilitate travel and commerce through and not into some local communities. And just to put into context the numbers from Richfield from 2003 to 2023, Richfield spent 66% of their municipal state aid dollars on projects to rebuild or rehabilitate roads that they don't own. And 22% on a street underpass to facilitate state highway congestion relief in advance of a 494 project. Mr. Chair, our cities with populations below 5,000 population, and that's about 700 of our cities, are equally negatively impacted by onerous one-size-fits-all cost participation requirements. For all cities faced with cost share obligations, the end result is a combination of deferred maintenance on their own systems and property tax increases. In short, the League supports flexibility in or exemption from cost participation when a city cannot meet cost share obligations. And we strongly support taking a closer look at the cost participation policy, which the provision in the Senate's omnibus bill does. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finn. Mr. Culver.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Dibbles, Kosnick, Cagle, and members. My name is Mark Culver. I'm the city engineer for the city of Brooklyn Park, and I'm representing the City Engineers Association of Minnesota today, as well as the city of Brooklyn Park. While we applaud the intent of this language, and we're very happy to see an effort move forward to modify cost participation on trunk highways, we do feel like we've been down this road before, requiring MnDOT to modify its cost participation with really little movement of the actual needle on costs to local agencies. We've heard responses from both legislators and MnDOT staff that cities really should have some skin in the game when it comes to cost participation on trunk highway projects. But the question is who really gets to determine how much skin is enough skin and how much is too much for any individual city? And we do have skin in the game. MnDOT requires us to maintain many items within the trunk highway right-of-way. We have to pay for the power for the traffic signals and street lighting. We have to plow the sidewalks and the trails. We have to paint the signal systems. We take care of most of the vegetation in the right-of-way in many cases. We do have skin in the game. The city of Brooklyn Park is not a small city. We are the 6th largest city in the state by population. But that doesn't mean that our ability to pay for cost participation on trunk highway projects can meet the requirements of MnDOT's cost participation. We're currently looking at a project that we're very much in favor for. We desperately need the conversion of 252 from an expressway to a freeway. We're looking at a bill upwards of $10 to $20 million for that project. You can say that the city benefits economically, and we would. We would definitely have some economic benefit from that project. But the real benefit of that project is the safety of the motoring public on that regional facility. This dollar amount represents several years of our municipal state aid allocation. We're very unlikely to use general fund dollars for this expense given the needs of our public safety forces, parks and rec, staff retention, and other priorities that are already driving our property taxes higher and higher every year. And as you've heard from some of the other testifiers, using our state aid dollars results in delays in maintenance of our own system. The City Engineers Association recognizes that there are costs that cities should be responsible for, such as new utilities, upgrading existing utilities in the right-of-way, certain aesthetic treatments, improvements above and beyond the scope of the trunk highway project. But there are costs that we feel we should not participate in, or at least not to the level required by the current cost participation policy. I believe that the legislators that have worked on this intend for the outcome of this required effort for MnDOT to alleviate situations like this, but the language is still very vague as far as what we're requiring MnDOT to do and come back with. And it still keeps MnDOT in charge of determining what a city is able to pay and continuing to determine what a city should pay for, including trails, sidewalks, sections of bridges, portions of traffic signals, roundabouts, et cetera. The cities are asked what they think. We are an active participant at the table during these conversations, and we very much applaud MnDOT for the efforts that we've taken. There's been movement on the needle already, but it's taken a long time to get where we are already. And the idea that we're going to be able to address all of the other large-scale items by February or March of next year is idealistic, I think. We're still skeptical of the outcome of this effort, and we're frustrated by another year of cities being forced to enter into cooperative construction agreements for costs that they can't really afford and don't agree with. At this point, given the language here and where we are with this bill, we ask that the original bill authors and the committee chairs be ready to move quickly with new legislation next session if the February report from MnDOT falls short on meeting the intent of this bill language and the original bill from Senator Jasinski. So thank you very much for this opportunity to testify. Good luck on completing this bill and passing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Culver. Mr. O'Rourke, welcome.
Thank you, members. Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. My name is Cap O'Rourke, Executive Director of Minnesota Association of Small Cities. As was stated before, I think the current one-size-fits-all cost share policy is really impactful for our small cities with populations under 5,000, especially when you have a community and you get a state aid road or a county highway that goes right through it. That cost share can be disproportionately high for the communities. But another piece that I want to bring up, and I raised this, I think, in the Senate hearing, something that a number of our cities have struggled with is when we have a cost share. Well, I'll take the city of Baudette, for example. They had a project come through their city. They were told by MnDOT that they had to set aside over $1 million. They had to put that, they were supposed to put that into an account. That was to cover their cost share. That project took over 2 years. If it was going to come under budget, they would then get a rebate. They don't have control of that account. They put it into an account under the state's control, and they lose out on all that interest. And for some of our small cities, the interest on $1 million over 2 years, that's an FTE. That's one extra staffer clearing roads. So there's the rate, but there's also how we're managing the money and putting it and making sure that our cities and our small cities can get the most out of their dollar even before it's spent and being done on this work. So as we look at this policy, I think there's a lot of different avenues to look at, and I would share the concern that, you know, they have a lot of things to work through in this working group, and they haven't made a ton of progress so far. And so I think I would echo the statement that by next spring, that legislators should be ready to put forward legislation and expect that report to have some real results. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. I see Commissioner making her way forward. Welcome, Commissioner Daubenberger.
Thank you, Chair Dibble.
All right, take us home, Commissioner Daubenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Chair Kosnick and Chair Cagle and members of the Conference Committee. My name is Nancy Daubenberger, and I'm the Commissioner of MnDOT. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some comments on the cost participation policy provisions in the Senate version of the Omnibus bill. MnDOT values the partnerships we have with local agencies, and we appreciate the partnering approach to developing and building projects on the trunk highway system. And we've also appreciated their participation over the years in helping us to update and refine our cost participation policy. As MnDOT has previously discussed, we are in the process of an update to our cost participation policy with a working group comprised of agency representatives from cities and counties as well as MnDOT. And the working group work on this policy update is expected to carry their work through the end of the year into early 2026 and wrap up with recommendations that are consistent with the bill language requirements proposed by Senator Jasinski, requiring a report to the legislature February 1st of 2026. We appreciate the bill language, recognizing the work that's currently underway to update our cost participation policy, and look forward to future conversations with legislators about the changes to be made to it. So thank you again, and I stand for questions.
I have a couple of questions, Commissioner. The first is there a way for legislators to be kept current on the discussion that's occurring at the Department of Transportation, throughout the balance of this year as we get closer to receiving the report from the Department of Transportation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We can certainly do that at whatever cadence you would like to have us provide updates.
Okay, why don't we talk some more about that? And I'm sure Senator Jasinski would like to be kept current, and maybe others as well. So we'll figure out what that exactly looks like. And then the activity that's underway and kind of reaffirmed, the language of the bill, I think, is just to emphasize that the legislature is interested in this work that's occurring. And of course wants to see the results of that in a timely enough way that perhaps we could act on that with legislative policy. And that's really my question is, does MnDOT envision updating in policies internal to MnDOT to guide the cost participation policy, or does MnDOT anticipate preparing suggestions for legislative changes on this subject?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe to touch on that in a little more detail, I could call up my colleague, Philip Schaffner, our Director of the Office of Transportation System Management, who's leading the effort. If that's
Great,
okay.
thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair and Chair Kosnick and Chair Cagle. My name is Philip Schaffner. I'm the Director of MnDOT's Office of Transportation System Management, and I am currently coordinating the update of the policy. We are primarily focused on updating the policy within the legal constraints that we have existing under current statutes. However, this bill does propose or ask the department to consider potential statutory changes, particularly as it relates to the department covering the cost for relocating locally owned utilities that currently we are prohibited from using trunk highway funds for. And so part of the work would be to identify potential changes to statute that might enable that in some shape or form. And that would be part of the work that we undertake over the next 8 to 9, 10 months.
Thank you. I just want to take this opportunity to just reemphasize some of the things we heard from the local government representatives. I was privileged to have a couple of different coffees over the course of our break. I always call it break. It's not really a break. We're busy doing these kinds of things. And I got an earful from my own Public Works Transportation Department in Minneapolis, as well as the suburban communities that surround Minneapolis, just talking about the exact points that were raised, that it absorbs a great deal of our own transportation roadway system improvement budget, I think, which is difficult to manage under the best of circumstances, but it's exacerbated by the timeliness factor, in that sometimes these cost participation requirements come in late, and they come in after the city has already established what on its own SIP, its own capital improvements program, it's going to be pursuing for the coming year, and it is totally disrupts. Even sometimes after bid packages have been prepared, bids have been let, and things like that, and it's very, very disruptive in terms of the interface, the timeliness, et cetera, and the demands. And then, of course, the point being made that sometimes the demands are for improvements to a system that really isn't utilized by the residents, or really benefits the overall transportation purpose of the city itself. It's got more regional nature. So I'm just, that's what I heard about, and that's why I was very supportive of Senator Jasinski when he brought this initiative forward. And so we'll be very, very interested in how these conversations go and what the recommendations will be in the coming year. Anything else, members? Senator Jasinski, and then why don't we go Senator Johnson Stewart, and we'll give the closing words to Senator Jasinski, unless anyone over here wants to. Okay, Senator Johnson Stewart, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to offer up that we didn't hear anything from the counties, and that is one group that reached out to me with some concerns about this. I don't see anybody from the, oh, Emily is here. I think that's an important viewpoint to hear, so if we could take a few minutes, that would be great.
Great. Thank you for that. Ms. Murray, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Dibble, Chair Kosnick, and Chair Cagle. And thank you for the questions, Senator Johnson-Stewart. On behalf of counties, well, my name is Emily Murray, and I represent the Association of Minnesota Counties. We're a voluntary association representing all of Minnesota's 87 counties. I also represent the Minnesota County Engineers Association, and we want to thank Senator Jasinski for your work on the bill throughout session. And when that standalone bill was heard, we did submit a letter. We do believe that there are ways to improve the current policy, and county engineers have been participating in the current process and discussions that are happening through MnDOT, and we think it's important to let that process continue to unfold. So I think with regards to the language included in Section 97, county engineers would be supportive of that. So.
Great. Thank you. I'll go to Chair Kosnick next.
Thank you, Chair Dibble, and good work on this, Senator Jasinski. We did have the hearing in the House as well. We weren't ready to put that bill into the language, so I appreciate the report that you have on here and those that have informed us about this issue a little bit more clearly. So I look forward to the department's report, but continue to work on this and look forward to supporting your work.
Great. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, everyone, for the discussion today. Again, this is something that goes way back to my city council and mayor days. Highway 60 coming through Faribault gave me some ideas. My city engineer at the time, Tim Murray, who now is city administrator, now retired, but we had many discussions about this. And, you know, one thing that has helped a couple of years, we got the money, dedicated money for small cities, so it does help some of our smaller cities have some dedicated funding coming in so they can plan for some of these things. But the real thing I'm trying to alleviate is that, you know, if what I'm hearing from some of the engineers is if this gets too complicated, then MnDOT will just go around the town. They'll improve the road up to the city, they'll stop through the city, and they'll finish on the other side. And we want to work together to come up with compromise to work through those things. And I think everybody needs some skin in the game. Just, again, Minneapolis versus Medford are two totally different communities to come through, so it impacts larger cities different than small cities. So having that flexibility and looking at that, I want to thank you, Commissioner, for working with me, along with Mr. Chapman. We had a discussion, and as well as Jennifer Witt in the back, who we had that discussion. And again, as a compromise, I want to continue on, let you guys do your work, but keep us involved. So you obviously know our concerns here. You've heard them. You've heard the concerns of the counties, the cities, and everyone else. So I hope you take that into consideration in doing this to make it a win-win for everybody, because we want our small cities to thrive. We don't want MnDOT to go around them because it brings up complicated issues. And timeliness is another thing bringing forward. A lot of these cities want to get projects done. And as we've seen even with the Met Council and the MnDOT project, where one that might be a year off, and working together to get those things done is really important. So thank you again, Commissioner, for your work, and everyone else and all the stakeholders who have made input. I'll continue to stay on this, and thank you for keeping us involved as legislators. I'm sure Senator Johnson-Stewart will be well informed as well, because her engineering background will help us get this to a better bill.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our agenda. Great work, committee. Really appreciate all of the good stuff that we discussed and all of the provisions that we've adopted today. So very grateful. Mr. Chair?
Tomorrow we'll be scheduled to be here again at 1 o'clock. We'll publish an agenda. Hadn't really thought about that much in advance, just kind of was hoping for some targets.
Right.
I didn't really promise them yesterday, but that was what was indicated to me. So.
Well, before we can send up our white smoke, we need them to send up their white smoke. So.
Yeah. So again, Senator Dibble, I appreciate the work that you've done and your partnership in this, and Chair Cagle. And so I remain optimistic that we can put a bill together as soon as we get a little bit more of a runway to do that. But we're working behind the scenes to have a framework together so that when we do get some target, we can adjust things and hopefully move quickly.
Great. Chair Cagle? All right. With that, we are adjourned.